Welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. We're here every Sunday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Join us live in the chat room. We've got folks in there tormenting each other and me. I want to talk to you about peace in Israel. Will there ever be Arab peace with Israel? And the experts' answer is yes. No. Maybe. For now. Most of the world, maybe you, think peace is possible in the Middle East. Not today, but maybe someday. Someday when cooler heads prevail. Someday when a truly wise leader comes along and settles this dispute. And if you believe that, well, you would be wrong. Why do the Arabs in the Middle East continue to refuse a lasting peace with Israel? The news media is filled with reports that the Arab world, most notably Saudi Arabia, and the countries in the Persian Gulf, might be prepared to sign a non-aggression peace truce with Israel. What's that mean from a Muslim perspective? I'll give you a hint. It doesn't mean what you think it means. So why are the Arabs so angry, so determined, so deceitful? In Islam, peace as we know it in the West, that is letting bygones be bygones, just cannot exist between Muslims and non-Muslims. It isn't built into their system. According to both the Quran and the Sharia, there can, however, be a temporary agreement, that is a truce or an armistice. Such a truce is called a sulha or a hudna. And these agreements are modeled after the treaty of something I can't pronounce. In 628 AD, this treaty was signed between the Islamic prophet Muhammad and this tribe of Mecca, whom Muhammad was unable to defeat. The agreement was to last 10 years. But after only 2, when Muhammad had managed to rearm himself sufficiently, he reneged on the agreement, attacked his enemies and defeated them. And you would holler unfair. But that's because you grow up in a Christianized, Christian-oriented system. Muslims don't. The Sulh Hudna agreement is the type of non-aggression pact the Saudis and other Arab Muslim nations seem to be willing to sign with Israel. It is now in their interest to do so because their existential enemy is Iran, an enemy which they share with Israel. Iran is, to a large extent, Muslim, but they're not Arabs. It's different. Any agreement they sign with the Israelis must be understood in these terms. These are not peace agreements. They remain in force only so long as the leaders of the Arab countries believe it in their interest. And when they no longer believe it to be in their interest, they'll just walk off and forget it and they'll attack again. For countries with strong institutions, agreements are not made between leaders, meaning that such agreements continue to be valid even if the country's governments change. That's not the case in the Middle East, where, with the possible exception of Turkey, agreements are made between leaders. And as long as that leader is alive or still in power, everything's fine. And almost all Muslim scholars agree that once a territory is conquered by Muslims, it must remain under Muslim rule forever. Non-Muslims, Christians, Jews, others who receive a revelation from God prior to Islam can live under Islamic rule, but they do not have the right to rule any territory that has ever been conquered by Muslims. Today's Israel was conquered by Muslims in 637-38 AD, and thus, according to Islam, must be ruled by Muslims forever. The Saudis, Morocco, other Arab Muslim countries, therefore, cannot sign permanent peace agreements with Israel. Israelis know that. Neither, for that matter, can Palestinian Authority leaders Mahmoud Abbas. He can't do it. Hamas's charter explicitly calls all of pre-1948 mandatory Palestine a Muslim waqf, which means it belongs to Allah forever. No Muslim can recognize Israel's permanent right to exist because it's a Jewish state ruled by Jews. And that's contradictory to Islam. Any Muslim that recognized Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state on Muslim land would be labeled a traitor and suffer the same fate as Anwar Sadat. He thought he could make a non-aggression pact with Israel. And he did. And his own people killed him. Does it matter that the Muslim Arabs cannot sign a true peace agreement with Israel? Well, as long as Israel recognizes that it must remain militarily strong and resolute in defending its culture and borders, it should be fine. Non-aggression pacts or peace treaties notwithstanding, as long as the Muslims realize that Israel is here to stay and will defend itself at whatever cost, non-aggression pacts or truces will be fine for them too. But no one should delude themselves into believing that any agreement between the Arabs and Israel will ever be like the peaceful relationship between, like, the United States and Canada. Not going to happen. That could only happen if there is a thought revolution in Islam, something that seems highly unlikely for the foreseeable future. Understanding the times, understanding the players, helps you to understand what you're reading in the paper or online.